So our topic is religion. We're going to be talking very specifically about two people in our community who attended this event that was called Parliament of the World's Religions. So I want you to welcome Sandy Smith, Reverend Sandy, and she is a leader with the Center for Spiritual Living, and Cecilia Ward, a practitioner also for this particular Center for Spiritual Living. The two of you took off and went to Salt Lake City, Utah, October 15th through the 19th. You were one of, or two of, 10,000 or so other people. So let me start with you, Cecilia, and tell me who else came besides you two, and why? Why'd they come?
There were people from 90 countries that were represented and 50 faith traditions or religions. They all came together to talk about some very important issues that are facing us in the world today, such as the poverty issues with children, the cruelty and the brutality of women. So there were lots of discussions and sessions on women's issues. There were sessions on climate change. There were sessions on how that we can make equal the economic values in the world, peace. It was very, very important issues that are facing each and every one of us that brought these people there.
Well, so we have other kinds of gatherings where people from different countries come. They're generally political. Sandy, how is this different than one of those kind of gatherings?
Well, it's really interesting because when you're talking about these particular issues, sometimes it's hard for countries to talk to one another. But in religion, religion goes into many different countries. And so if you're going to get something done, doesn't it make sense that you would be having people who really do want the best for human beings on the earth? That those would be the people that would just naturally get together and discuss a lot of these issues. And when you're discussing the issues, suddenly the religious barriers disappear because you can see that it is the issue rather than a particular faith.
Mm-hmm. So were the people that were there as attendees, were they leaders of these various religious groups, or were they more the followers?
Well, I think it was a combination of both. There were, the Imam of Islam was there, and he spoke. The Dalai Lama was supposed to be there, but he was ill. His physicians told him it was better he didn't travel. But there were Sikhs, and there were people from Baha'i. There was every single faith. In fact, when I went around to the booths that they had, I was so surprised at all of them. It made me feel very odd, but it also made me feel very humble, because I just felt like, oh my God, I'm just this speck in the world. And just as I feel strongly in my belief, I know that other people feel that same way. And isn't it wonderful that people can find something that's important to them? Something that they can believe in.
Well, I know that when people hear that it was in Salt Lake, they're just really taken aback, because that is really the central point on the planet for Mormons, Church of Latter-day Saints. And I know that you toured one of the temples, didn't you? No?
No, you're not allowed in the temple unless you're a Mormon. But we did go to the tabernacle.
Okay, all right. So they were represented as well.
Yes.
All of the, I'm going to assume that most of the typical religions in the United States, like Lutheran or Baptist or whatever the group, Catholic, they were there?
Catholics for sure, because they were some of the prisoners. But I'm not sure about the other religions specifically, but I know that Christianity in the whole was represented there.
Okay. What was, so we're looking at a central theme of this is in terms of world issues that everyone can participate. Would you say that was the central theme?
I think the central theme was oneness, period.
Okay.
Of just recognizing the fact that one people can come together, and yes, we can discuss these issues, you know, but I think that idea of oneness was oh my God, you would see people sitting down talking to each other. Cecilia and I both, like on our breaks, just an amazing number of people would just talk to you about their faith. And it was so comfortable because you could talk to somebody else about your faith and they would talk to you about theirs. And we could just say, wow, that is so interesting. And I didn't come across one time any idea of somebody saying, well, you know, my faith's better than your faith. So I would think it was oneness.
Yeah, I agree with that too, Sandy, because the theme was reclaiming our heart of our humanity, reclaiming the heart of our humanity. It was oneness. It was all about loving kindness. It was all about compassion. There wasn't any kind of discussion, as far as I was concerned, that which faith is better. It wasn't about that. It wasn't about comparing faiths. It was about oneness and love and compassion in the world to make the changes. And everybody was on the same page.
Mm-hmm. So, was God there?
Oh yeah. Well, and it's just so true that it is that same force that we believe in, and people just call it different names.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't wait till we get to the point where when somebody says, "What race are you?" we say human.
Okay, I like that. I like that. So I want you to tell me about some of the training or sessions that you individually went to and what you thought about them.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the highlight for me of the whole convention was hearing Jane Goodall speak. And she started out and she was going like, oh, oh, and she said, that's my name in chimpanzee. And she said, that's what the chimpanzees say when they see me. And she was speaking about the fact, she said, I'm 81, and about 10 years ago, I started this program in elementary schools called Roots and Shoots. And I don't know if any of our schools in this particular area have it, but it's an incredible program where kids learn about the environment and learn about different things. There was one particular school in Colorado where the kids, they explored all the issues that were present, and they discovered that they had a strong feeling for coyotes and the fact that coyotes were getting like a bad rap. And so they decided they would create this campaign where they could put signs up to tell people what to do if you saw a coyote. And they were considering things like, well, what if they don't speak English, you know, or oh, what if they can't read? And so they created these wonderful little posters that show you when you meet a coyote, you very slowly back up. But it talked about all the other things in pictures that were just incredible. And I'm awed by the fact that she's in her 80s and she started this 10 years ago. She travels 300 days out of the year to go and do this. And she said one time she went into a school that was kind of a lower economic school, and she was telling the kids, we really make a difference. You really make a difference. And she was telling them why, because they're so inspired they can do things. And one of the little girls afterwards came up to her and said, nobody ever told me that I was important.
She's quite a humanitarian.
Oh,
she was, and now because of all of her speaking activities, sharing that with other people. She was recently in Yakima within the past, at least within the past year and a half. She was part of their town hall series, and she is quite amazing for that age, isn't she?
You'd never guess, looking at her, that she was 80.
Yeah.
She is now the UN ambassador for peace.
Cecilia, tell me some of the one of the training sessions that you were most affected by.
Well, I think the one that Sandy spoke to, because that was on ending war, violence, and hate speech, because there were lots of different speakers from lots of different faith traditions. And one of the things that they spoke about was the phobia that we as Americans have against the Islam faith, and how that our media just keeps perpetrating that, and everyone is filled with fear about this faith and believes that anyone following this faith is a terrorist, and it's not true. And I met a young American woman that was Muslim just in break time when I was sitting there resting, and had a wonderful conversation with. And she was having the same experience that I was having about all of the oneness and the love and how we can all get along, and there really isn't that much difference in any of us, except for maybe some of the values that we hold to be true as our faith tradition. But that doesn't mean that we can't live on this planet in peace. That was, I felt that very strongly. And then, of course, the sessions on women's issues was spoke to my heart quite a bit. But I came back with a feeling of, gee, I don't feel like I'm doing enough to contribute these changes to be working in the world today, and I really need to be of service in some kind of organization. So I'm reaching out to do something like that. I've called this organization that I wasn't even aware was in the Tri-Cities called World Relief. They help refugees get settled in the Tri-Cities, and I've asked them to consider me to be a volunteer, because this convention had such an impact on me that I feel like I really need to be contributing more into the community than I am.
So being more active than just talking about it. And that's a good point. We're going to take a break here. We'll be back, and we want to entertain any questions or comments that you might have as well. Get pencil ready or your phone ready. I'll give you that phone number to call when we come back, so stay with us. Welcome back. We're spending this Friday talking about religion. We have two local women who just recently went to the Parliament of the World's Religions. 50 different religions were represented. In our studio today we have Sandy Smith and Cecilia Ward. They just got back, and they haven't been back too long. October 15th through the 19th is when they gathered with 10,000 other people in Salt Lake City, Utah, at the Salt Palace. And one of the things that I had asked them earlier and that they shared with me is that with all these different countries represented and religions, I was wondering what language did they speak? And they spoke English. Now, pretty much the universal language for the planet. I keep hearing that over and over. We have a caller on the line. Let's go ahead and add them to our conversation and see what we come up with. Hi, you're on the air with us today. Hey, thanks a lot for your call. We like to hear from all different kinds of people. So keep listening. All right.
Absolutely.
Hey, yeah. Hey, our phone number.
If you don't agree, feel free to call.
Yeah,
That's why we
sure.
have the phone, 547-8726.
All right. Back to my guests. All right, Sandy and Cecilia. So we were talking about this was at the Salt Palace. It was a huge event. And I was wondering also, with different countries represented and different religions, what kinds of foods that you ate?
Well, they had an area called the Gathering Place, and they had all of the different types of food that each faith tradition would be wanting to eat, like vegan, and I'm not completely clear on all of those. The langar was a lunch that the Sikh tradition put on every day. It was a free lunch for anyone that wanted to go. I did attend that. You had to take off your shoes, and you had to have your head covered. But everybody sat on the floor except for the elders, like myself. We were allowed to sit at a table. And then they came and served you the most wonderful vegetarian Indian food. And it was delightful. The people that were serving you did this with love and appreciation, loving kindness and compassion, like I said before, was prevalent at this convention. It was awesome.
That's really nice. And so how can you take some of the things that you learned there and, you know, sort of expand it and even implement it and bring it to our community and share it with more people? How can we do that? Because we can't solve a war that is on the other side of the planet, but we could do something here locally.
Yes, I went to one of the sessions, and the sessions was about how young people are becoming involved in different places in the United States and around the world as well. But this particular group was from a Catholic university, and they just had so many people that were involved in so many different traditions. And after listening to them, I realized I'm part of the Faith Action Network right here in the Tri-Cities. And a lot of these kids are involved in things like the Faith Action Network. And so what I came back with is to make sure that what we're doing is including some of the people like from even CBC and from Washington State University, because at that conference, 65% of the people that were there were either women or people under 30.
Okay.
So isn't that inspiring? Because really that's where it's coming from, the next generation. And that's an encouraging thing to feel like young people are being exposed to this idea of oneness.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go ahead and add another caller to our conversation today. Hi, you're on the air with us. Thanks a lot for your call. I appreciate it. All right, so truth and love.
Well, I think that everyone has their own truth, and each faith tradition has their own truth. The love that was there is the unconditional love, the love of God, Spirit, Elah, whatever you want to call it, one power, a higher power. I think that's the love that was present there. That was the love that I was feeling, that there wasn't that much difference between any one of us as human beings. Yes, we may differ on our faith traditions and our beliefs, but that doesn't mean that we can't have mutual loving kindness for one another.
And Emerson said that a synonym for love is God. God, when you're talking about God, everybody, I think, believes that God is love.
I think today truth is very difficult to discern because, Cecilia, I just can't help but agree with you in that we all have our own truth. We're all listening to a variety of information. Sometimes it's the same, sometimes it's different, and we create whatever that truth is.
Oprah has a serious belief, and what's incredible about that is that she is exploring, like she has a Methodist woman who had cancer. She has a person who hikes mountaintops. She has people from many different faiths, and she's talking about the fact that they all believe. And something that happens at the very beginning of the program and the end of the program is that this little child says, "It's up to you to believe." And so I guess it just makes me feel like if a person believes in something that's of comfort to them and doesn't harm other people, isn't that what the world is all about? For a person to have that comfort.
So there was no goal per se that at any point that all religions would be melded into one. No, yeah. That there was a celebration of the differences and commonalities, I'm going to assume.
Yeah, when you get right down to the heart of the matter, each one of those faith traditions has the same concept, that they believe in a higher power of some sort, and that there is unconditional love, mutual respect, and compassion for other people of other traditions and of other ethnicities as well. You know, we can live in peace. We are needing to look more at the things that we have in common than our differences. And when you really start looking at that, we all have those same things in common. We want peace. We want to be able to provide for our families. We want our families to live in a safe environment, to have food, to have clean water. Those things don't change from any other country. We're all wanting the same thing. So we can make this happen, but I think that it has to be on an individual basis. You know, sometimes I think, well, what can one person do? Well, there is the power of one. You can make a difference.
Let's go ahead and add another caller. Oh, not there. Call us back and we'll make sure that you get on the show.
Redial works.
So, will there be other ways that you can share some of what you have learned and what you participated in with other groups in the community?
Well, I think that definitely through the Faith Action Network, that would be a good place for us to begin. I share it every Sunday, you know, when I'm talking to the people in my congregation. And I think word of mouth is probably about the best way you can go about something.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the idea of sharing peace and sharing the idea of improving the environment and what can we become involved in, that idea of sharing it in schools is a wonderful idea.
All right, ladies, I really appreciate that you came and spoke about religion and your experiences at this very wonderful event, Parliament of the World's Religions. Does it happen every 2 years? Is that what it?
Well, actually, the first time it happened was in 1893.
Oh, okay.
And
All
then
right.
it didn't happen, and it was in Chicago, and it didn't happen for another 100 years. And then it happened in Chicago again, and then 5 years went by, and it was in Italy, and 5 years went by, and it was in Australia, and 5 years went by, and it was in Salt Lake City. And we just got the message, Cecilia, both and I, on the email saying that they're planning one in 1917, and they're just not exactly sure.
2017.
2017. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can't fool you. Yeah. And so we don't know exactly where it's going to be yet, but there's one being planned.
There's one being planned. All right, and in the meantime, we can do what we do as individuals.
That's right, because there are probably a lot of organizations within this community that you could get involved in, whether your interest is in environmental issues, whether it's in peace, whether it's in working with children, whether it's helping in the World Relief Program that I'm interested in helping to place the Syrian refugees that will be coming to the Tri-Cities.
Helping
There's-
animals.
Helping animals. There's just a lot that can be done.
My niece and nephew every year at Christmas time send out gifts from from Heifer International.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That is like a wonderful organization that allows you to buy like a goat or a flock of chickens or something that you can give to a third world country that's going to help them be able to learn how to help themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the conditions is that when you get the animals and they come in a pair, that the offspring you will give to someone else in your village. And I just think things like that are absolutely wonderful.
All right, thank you, ladies. Sandy Smith and Cecilia Ward, Parliament of the World's Religions. We're back in a moment here on this Friday on Meet in the Middle.